Predicting the weather, not an easy thing to do, I realize. But how many times, whether it's your local TV station or an app that you depend on your phone, has it just not been accurate? Now, to give them credit, a lot of times the forecasting is pretty good, especially within a 2 to 3 day range. Sometimes they can get it accurate out to 5 to 7 days, but it's still not perfect. And if you have a garden, a farm, a market garden like we do, you kind of depend on those forecasts. And I'll tell you the scenarios where it's really important. When we get to spring and there's thunderstorms, we have high tunnels, as you can see. And if there's a storm coming in, you have to time it just right when to get those sides down. If you take them down too soon, it's a hot day, you'll literally fry everything. It'll get up to 130 degrees inside those high tunnels. And it is extremely brutal on things you've planted, especially new seedlings. So you don't want it to be too hot. So you've got to keep the sides open until the storm hits. So the prediction center will say, well, we're looking at thunderstorms around 3 p.m., 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and sometimes that's just not accurate. Or even worse, I've had this happen where there was no storm predicted, and I left the sides open, and 4 in the morning, the storm started coming in. Thankfully, I saw a flash of lightning, came outside 4 in the morning, got these sides down, and save these high tunnels. Because if there is a high enough gust of wind and the sides are not down, the indoors are not down, it can destroy those high tunnels. But if they're down, they have a good chance of surviving. I've seen them survive almost up to 100-mile-an-hour gust. So where we're at, we don't always get perfect predictions on our forecast. For example, Austin's about 90 miles that way. San Antonio is about 100 miles that way. And the forecasts that we get are not always correct. They have a projection for this county, but sometimes it's just not always correct. So what you have to do is kind of become an amateur meteorologist. And I know that sounds funny, but what I do is I have about 3 apps I depend on. I have Weather Nation. And by the way, none of these are sponsors. It's just what I use. There's one that's called Willie's Weather. I think I have that right. Willie's does a good job for wind speed, and I really like it. It will show the projection throughout the day. I think the weather that I get from my iPhone, that probably comes from the Weather Channel. And then Weather Nation, as I mentioned. So between those 3 and one of the TV stations out of Austin, with their projection, once I listen to all of those, I can kind of decide what I need to do. If it's a time of day when I need to get ready to have the high tunnels down, I need to hold off on maybe planting because I don't want those new seeds washed out if there's a big rain that's coming. Or if you've just spent $70 on a group of seeds, maybe lettuces, and you plant and you're doing it just a little bit too early in the season, say late March, and the prediction for the frost is incorrect, and you do get a frost at night and it destroys those seedlings. So there's a lot of things that are weather dependent, whether you have a garden, like I said, or a big monocrop farm or market garden like we do. You have to have those predictions. So the thing I'll say that we have learned out here, and you'll learn trends in your own geography, is that we've learned that when they'll say that the low tonight's going to be 35 degrees, we know that it's going to freeze. Because in this part of Central Texas, we're just high enough elevation in the Texas Hill Country, away from Austin, that we're a little bit colder than what they predict or think. If they say the high for the day is going to be 90, they're usually on, but sometimes it's the upper 80s. So there's usually anywhere from a 5 to 10 degrees difference. And so we really have to think about that when we plant, especially in the early spring. So the reason I make this video and the reason I tell you is if you have a garden, don't always depend on those forecasts. You can use them as a tool and a guide, and then start to formulate your own plan for your garden and for your week ahead as you plant or harvest or if you're like me and you have high tunnels and they need to be protected. So we hope you got something out of that. Think about those weather situations where you're at. Each week we want to bring you good information. We have another video we think you'll like that's going to be down in this corner. Hope you'll take a look at that, check it out. Blessings over you, your family, your harvest, your garden. Take care. Talk to you soon from Whirlwind Family Farm.